Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for our eBenefits registration webinar. I wanted to let you know that our main host, Rin, is unable to join us at the beginning of this presentation. And so we will be playing a recording of an earlier eBenefits registration event from earlier this month. We'll still be taking your questions during the Q&A session at the end of the session, but we will first be playing this full video about 26 minutes through before we start answering your questions. So I'm going to go on mute and play the video. Thank you for joining us.
All right, we've switched gears. My name is Rin Coleridge, and I work for the San Francisco Health Service System. And today we're going to take you through eBenefits registration, so thank you very much for joining. By the end of this training, you should know how to have registered for an eBenefits account, be able to look at your current elections, and make changes online during open enrollment or around the year for any qualifying life events. So we'll take a look at that. But let's tell you first how this training is structured. This is a Microsoft Live Teams event, so you are all muted, but how you interact with us is through the chat window. You'll type into the Q&A box in your menu. So if you look for the question mark with the call out icon, and then you'll see the live event Q&A where you can ask your questions and type them in. And we've got moderators and teams standing by. I've got Sharmini and Derek and Jessica and Holly here to help field your questions, and some will respond to you and some we will we will speak to online if they refer to a lot of people. And yeah, if you're on a mobile device, you might have to scroll through your screen to find that menu bar. It's either the top or the bottom of the screen. If you're giving us any questions, please do not give us DSW or other personal information because this is a public forum and we want to make sure that we're protecting your personal information. And if you have a question that's a lot more complex or personal in nature, we recommend a one-to-one consultation, and you can go to our website and schedule those appointments. So today's webinar is really focused on how to register for eBenefits. So let's just be clear that this is a one-time setup for your eBenefits account. It's only applicable for City College, San Francisco Unified School District, and employees of both of those employers, and all retirees. If you work for the City and County of San Francisco or the Superior Court, your account is already there. It's the same account you're using for payroll entry and some other items. If you are somebody who has two jobs, you have a job with either USD or City College and also another job with, say, the City and County of San Francisco or the courts, then you also already have an account. So this is only for people who only have jobs with those other employers and have never done this before. And it's a one-time setup. So that's a little bit of that. And so as we go through this, the following slides are going to take you through step-by-step instructions on how to register your account. If you're computer savvy enough, you're more than welcome to try and follow it along and do it, or this information will be posted online and we'll show you where you can get this information. And some of my colleagues here will be throwing some links into the chat window to make it easy for you. And so you'll be able to do that. So some steps that you need for registering for eBenefits. First, as part of the process, you're going to get your DSW number. DSW stands for Disaster Service Worker, and it's not your community college or your San Francisco Unified School District employee ID. And it's not your DSW if you are a DSW through another employer. It's really just the user ID we have in our system, and that's what we have. Your benefits and everything is associated with that ID. And so that's what is your username. There is no way to create a username. It'll be this ID. And you're going to need to have it, save it, use it, because if you ever need to call and get help, you'll need to give your ID, etc. But you can always call us at HSS after you've gone through the registration if you ever forget your ID, and we can let you know what your ID is. Also, when you get your open enrollment letters from us, which I think it's maybe end of this week sometime that you're getting those letters, you will see that we've provided your ID for you there as well. Then the other thing you'll do in these steps is you'll set your password. you'll set up multi-factor authentication. That is, in addition to the password, some other type of security check that you have to do. This is common practice today as a way to ensure your accounts are more secure. So if you do any kind of online banking, even sometimes you may have set it up for your email that in addition to your password, it prompts you for something else. And so we'll do the setup of that. And then finally, as part of your day, we'll show that you can then log in and you'll be able to view your benefits.
Rin, may I interrupt for a minute? Can you talk a little slowly, please?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Shani.
Thank you.
All right. So to set up your account, you will go to the My Apps portal, and I think we may be putting that into the chat window, but the link is myapps.sfgov.org. And when you do that, you'll get to this. It's a login page. And at the bottom of this login page, there is a little link here that says first-time registration for retirees, City College, or SFUSD. And so you're going to want to click on that link for this one-time registration. When you do, it's going to take you through a series of prompt screens that we want to make sure we're validating it's you. And once we've gone through that validation, we'll be able to give you your information. And again, the information you're going to get is your DSW, but it's not really a DSW because you don't function as a disaster service worker for the city and county, whether you're retired or employed. It's just your user ID essentially is what this is. So you'll put in on this screen your first name, your last name, and just the month and year, MMYYYY, of your date of birth. Then there's a little captcha, and it is case sensitive. So in this example, for example, that's a capital W and a capital Q and a capital B, but a lowercase n and 2 capital Y's. And you would put all that information in there. And in fact, if you don't have all the information filled out, that submit button doesn't even let you submit. But once you do, you could submit it. And if the information matches, it'll let you go to the next screen. If it doesn't match, you might not have been able to get the right CAPTCHA, in which case if you hit your refresh button on your top of your browser, that's another way for it to go ahead and give you a new CAPTCHA, keeping in mind these fields, because you refresh the page, will blank out and you'll just have to type them in again. But if you also run into some difficulties here, it might be that the information we have in our system doesn't match what you're typing in. Maybe in our system your name is Peter, but you're putting in Pete. So think about like the communications you get from HSS, the letters that we address to you, things like that. And we're using probably potentially more your legal name, but not entirely. It depends how your employers are sending it over, but that's what you're looking for. And that's why you may or may not match. But assuming you do, and you've clicked submit, you're going to get into another screen that's asking for more information to verify who you are before we hand over some of the information to you. So again, we'll prompt you for your first and last name. This time, we're going to add in, again, date of birth, but this time you're going to go all the way to the MMDDYYYY, so the full date of birth. And then we're also wanting the final 5 digits of your Social Security number. So you'll enter those prompted pieces of information. And once you do that, you will again click on the submit button. Once you submit and you've passed all the checks that we've got the right information, and again, if it failed, it might be that you inadvertently mistyped something. It might be that we have a data quality issue. It's happened before where your DOB in our system is not correct. It's what got transmitted, but maybe it's off somewhere. But if all your information matches, which hopefully it does, you'll get into this screen where you're going to create your password. But please, before you start creating your password, look at the top of the screen, because at the top of the screen there is where it says your DSW. And again, that's just a user ID. Everybody will have one. Anybody, retirees, employees, etc. It's the ID you use to log in. but take note of it, write it down. You're not going to see it again, so you don't want to lose that information, because when we're done with this and you want to be able to log in and see your benefits, you're going to need that number. Then you're going to set a password. Passwords have to be at least 10 digits, and it'll tell you this on the screen, so you don't have to memorize this. It'll tell you it needs an uppercase, a lowercase, a numeric. And as you create a password that reaches all of those, little green check marks will fill in. So that helps let you know, okay, I've taken care of that one. And the final one is that the password you just created, when you type it again, it has to match. So we make sure we got the right password. And so then you'll get a green check there. Once you've done all of that, you can click on the submit button. And now you will have done a couple of items. You will have, one, gotten your user ID, also known as your DSW, which we said you would get as part of this process. And you will have set your password. So that was the second thing that we were going to accomplish today. Then, once you're done with that, you'll get a screen when you click submit that says your password has been successfully reset. And then it'll say to log in. And we want to do that because now we're proceeding to goal number 3 for today's training, where we're going to set up your multi-factor authentication. So you click login. Now this looks like the very first screen you started out with, except instead of clicking at the bottom where you were doing the first time registration, you've already done that one time only thing. So now you're actually going to log in with the information that you just received, your ID, the DSW, and the password that you just created. So you go ahead and you put in that information, and then you click agree and sign in. Your ID, I believe it does give it to you. So if it's a minimum length of 5. So if you had an ID that was 6, like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you would drop the 0 and it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But if it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, then you use all 6. But it should be what showed up when you wrote down your ID. Okay, so then when you've logged in, and so congratulations, that would have been your first login, you get to a screen that's talking about enabling this multi-factor authentication. There is a choice on the screen because it's sort of a vanilla out-of-the-box factory default from Oracle that offers email, but when you're not supporting email, the reason for that is for most of the city workers, email is behind this multi-factor authentication. So if you aren't able to get in and you're trying to do a password reset, you can't get the MFA link because you can't get into your email. So it's this circular logic that happens. So mobile